Hello, friends. We are going to talk about the Camino de Santiago. I'm going to start with a little folktale anecdote because a lot of people don't know the origin story. And let's say story in the true sense of the word, folktale story. But it's fascinating. So before 800 AD, there was a gentleman out in his fields at night under all of the stars, and he found a skeleton, a body. And he said, "My goodness, this is St. James," because it had been rumored that he had, in previous years, done ministry in Spain. And so he got the body and he told the queen, and the queen was like, "Obviously, this is St. James, and we should build a cathedral so that people can pilgrimage to come and visit these remains." Clearly, she was a wise woman if she was trying to get people to come to her country and spend money and visit and all of that. But since 800 AD, people have been coming to the cathedral in Santiago to visit St. James's remains. Now, people do this pilgrimage for many different reasons. Obviously, since I'm having to tell a lot of you this story for the first time, it means that you're considering doing this without knowing without knowing the actual story behind it. But people go on this pilgrimage for so many reasons, and all of them are worth it. When it was first established, like many pilgrimages, it was for penance, it was for spiritual guidance, it was because you were honoring a dead relative, these types of things. Obviously, over the centuries, different people have done it for different reasons. There are stats now that you can go online and look at for the reasons, and spiritual and religious reasons are still one of the top selected, but there are other ones. And some people are still coming to remember the grief of losing someone. They're coming to walk the pilgrimage because they're going to make hard decisions in the next year, or maybe they are overwhelmed in life and they feel like they need their own company for a while and they need to spend some time with their own thoughts and with prayer to God. So many reasons to do this Camino. Now, there are actually many routes that come into Santiago in northwest Spain. The most popular one is the Camino Francis, which is the portion, we're going to do a portion of that one from Sarria to Santiago. But that one actually starts in France, like its name. But you can also come up through Portugal. There is a route that comes from Italy or that comes up through Madrid. There's one that comes from the north, so it's more of a coastal route that comes down from northern Spain. But the Camino Francis is the most traditional and the most popular one. So that is the Camino de Santiago. Now, I'm going to do a little overview first. We're going to talk about the average day on the Camino. We're going to talk about how we would get there and back. We're going to talk about where you would be staying. Just a couple things on packing, because while we're really early into this, that actually often ends up being people's most curious questions. We're going to talk about the costs and then a little bit about training and what your body needs to be ready for. So, first thing is the average day. We are going to be doing a 6-day walk, so we'll travel for 8 days, but we'll be walking for 6 of them, starting on Sunday and then ending in Santiago on Friday. Our daily average miles, we're going to be walking anywhere from 9 to 15 miles. There's only one day that's 15 miles. I'm not going to lie, it's a rough day. You definitely want to make sure that you're eating a lot of chocolate croissants and treating yourself that day. But most days are going to be around 10 miles, give or take. And then because it is a pilgrimage and I want to guard people's time with God and time with themselves, we do one day on Wednesday. So you're well prepared because this is not your first day walking. On Wednesday, we actually do a solo day where we stagger the time we leave from our B&B so that people can have a day to themselves. Obviously, when you're walking, you can take time to yourself. You don't always have to walk with someone, but we like to guard at least one full day. Now, the schedule generally runs depending on when you like to get up and around. Remember, we are going to be 6 hours ahead. But breakfast is 7:30 to 8:30, and it's served at our B&Bs. And then people like to start anywhere from, 7:30 to 8:30 to 9 for morning walk. Some of you might feel more jet lagged than others, and so you can take your own pace. Then it is highly recommended to stop at one of the many villages. So you're going to be walking like field, forest, village, forest, field, village. To stop in one of the villages, and they have so many cafes and restaurants that you can have a delicious cafe con leche. And then continue walking, right? Usually people stop between 12 and 2 at one of the restaurants for lunch. It is sometimes possible at the B&B to ask for a packed lunch. But usually the stop for lunch at a restaurant is often one of the delights of the day. Good conversation, good food, all of that. Then you walk for the afternoon, usually arriving to the destination between 3 and 6 p.m. Usually it's going to be around 3 or 4 in the afternoon, but on that long day it ends up being more around our traditional dinner time. But the thing is that's not Spanish traditional dinner time. So when you get to your B&B, you can shower, you can rest, you can relax, all of those things. And if you've ever been to Spain before, you know that they eat late. So dinner is generally served anywhere from 7:30 to 8, sometimes as late as 8:30 p.m. Now, if we're at a B&B that serves us dinner, it's based on their schedule. However, if we're in a village for the night and we want to eat somewhere else, we have more ability to determine when we eat dinner. But oftentimes the restaurants aren't going to be open for dinner until about 7. And then we sleep, and we do it day after day. And it becomes just a lovely rhythm and a day spent in one sole purpose, which is very different from most of our lives, where we're frantically trying to fill many different needs. All right, travel to and from. We got to get to Madrid and back, and so travel via plane is done by you. So I do not make plane reservations or purchase plane tickets for y'all. Part of that is because it gets pretty complicated on my end, but the other part is you can arrive and leave when you want to. My request is just that you arrive to Madrid by Saturday morning. I have always done the Delta 6:30 p.m. Friday flight, which gets me in a direct flight at 8:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. But there are other options. If you're willing to have flexibility, there are other less expensive options. But again, that is up to you. I just ask that everybody be in Madrid by Saturday morning so that we can catch a 1 p.m. train. And that usually means you need to be into the airport by 10 o'clock because the train station is one that we have to take a metro to. So we return on Sunday. We're going to ride a train back to Madrid on Saturday and then fly out on Sunday. Again, some people like to go early or they like to stay late. That's totally up to you. But leaving Friday night and arriving home on Sunday does ensure that you're only missing 1 week of work if that's important to you. Now, we do have to ride some trains because the Camino de Santiago is out in rural Spain. So we take on Saturday afternoon when we arrive in Madrid, we take a 4-hour train trip to the town of Sarria, which is where we're starting. It's one of the most popular starting points on the Camino for people who want to get their 100-kilometer Compostela. So we're going to ride the train there, spend the night in our first B&B, and then start walking on Sunday morning. We will obviously end somewhere else. We're going to end in Santiago. So we will end on Friday walking, stay in a hotel in Santiago, and then the next morning hop on a train back to Madrid. Now, when we get back to Madrid on Saturday, we stay at a hotel right by the train station. So you have the option for the afternoon or evening if you feel like you still have energy and gusto to go explore Madrid. Some people like to do that. I prefer to check into the hotel and get a glass of wine and sit by the pool. But you do you. The thing is we will be back to Madrid on Saturday by a train. The next morning, we will hop in either a large Uber or a pre-arranged taxi and head to the airport. All right. Our lodging is... Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, our lodging is done by an outfitter, and you'll see in these pictures examples of the lodgings that we will potentially stay in. It really depends when we make the reservation and what's available and how big we need it to be to fit our group or how small. So we are staying in B&Bs and hotels along the trail. So the B&Bs, some of them are actually off the trail by a mile or two, and so we will take a taxi. Usually it's a taxi sent by the B&B, or one of their workers will come and pick us up and take us out to the location. And these are just big spreading casas. They're people's homes that have been transformed into these B&Bs for pilgrims. If we go out to a B&B that's off the trail, they will serve us dinner. And you'll see in the picture to the right, that's one of our dinners in a sweet little brick. My guess is originally it was like a big family room, but they've made it into their dining room. It's quite lovely. Those dinners are actually often the best dinners on the trail when you're at someone's home out in the countryside. There are some hotels that we will stay at along the way, but when I say hotel, do not think of the Hyatt or Hilton or whatever. These hotels are much smaller, more boutique type hotels, some of them undistinguishable from a B&B. But we'll also stay in a hotel in Madrid on our way to the night before the airport flight. Now, at the B&Bs, breakfast is included. So everywhere that we stay, breakfast will be on site, which means you're just responsible for your lunch. And then that night, if we're taken off site, we'll know beforehand. So we'll know if we need to eat dinner in the village or if we're going to eat dinner at the B&B. All right. Packing. The people get so curious about this. My biggest thing, which is why it's in bold up at the top right, is on the way out, you pack carry-on only. Because we are going to get off that flight in Madrid, ride to the train station on the metro, and then take a 4-hour train to rural Spain. And there is no way to get a lost bag out there. There's just no way. And so flying out, it's carry-on only. I've never had someone truly not be able to pack what they need in either a roller suitcase, or I have like one of those Patagonia black hole bags. But the key is on the way out, it needs to be with you the whole time. On the way back, if you buy presents, if you buy things that are, all of that, by all means, you can check your bag, because if it gets lost on the way to Atlanta, the consequences are not as high. But on the way out, carry on only. General packing, you'll pack your daily clothes. You'll have 2 different shoes, at least. One that are your trail shoes. Maybe you have hiking boots, or maybe you have tennis shoes. The big key thing is that they're waterproof. And then evening shoes. So Birkenstocks are my favorite, but any kind of shoe that's going to make your foot feel happy after being in those hiking boots all day. Flight supplies. It is an overnight flight on the way out for most people. And so having your Benadryl or whatever you take to sleep, having your eye mask and your pillow, all of that. You're going to want to pack in layers for clothing, because the temperature changes if you start walking in the morning at 8:30 and you end walking at 3:30 in the afternoon. Those are going to be very different temperatures. So lots of layers. High quality wicking socks. Any kind you're going to get at REI, or if you're a runner, you probably already are really into the sock world. High quality, good wicking athletic socks. And then it's going to rain. And sometimes you're going to walk for hours in the rain. And so you definitely want to bring rain gear. There are 2 camps. Some people love a rain jacket and rain pants, and some people love a poncho. I particularly have tried both, and I enjoy the poncho because it's just kind of like a big blanket that goes over your backpack, your legs, everything, but it also provides a breeze. But that's my own preference. And obviously we're in Spain, we're in Europe, so the outlets are different. So you'll need to bring your own outlet adapter so you can charge things like your phone. But the great thing about our outfitter is that they take our suitcases to the next B&B. It's great. So all you have to carry every day is your day pack. Things that I recommend in the day pack: dry socks, Compeed, which is a kind of a very fancy Band-Aid. It's like a second skin. But anything you want for foot care, like Vaseline, those types of things. You're really going to want to prevent blisters. And so foot care things. Water bottles. Sometimes I usually bring a water bottle for water and a water bottle for an electrolyte drink. You're going to want a hat. You're going to want it for rain. You're going to want it for heat and sun, all the things. You're also going to want your rain gear in your day pack, unless you've looked at the forecast and it says clearly no rain. Other than that, you're just going to want it in there for backup. I recommend keeping your medications on you, since our bags are in the hands of people who are transporting them during the day, our big bags, and so keeping your medications on you on your backpack. And then you're going to want to have some euros, and we'll talk a little bit about where to get them and all of that as it gets closer. And then layers. Layers are just important. Costs. So this is one of the less expensive European trips, which is great. The flights generally are going to be between $1,200 and $1,500. I have flown cheaper, but you're flying through Texas or through London or these other places, which have their own toll on your body. So generally, I would say flights can be found between $1,200 and $1,500. And obviously, that's contingent on when you decide to buy it. I recommend at 6 months out starting to look at prices and tickets, and then just keeping track of it and purchasing when you feel comfortable. Meals on average are about $30 a day, because remember, breakfast is included, and we'll talk about that with the church fee in all of your B&Bs. So the meals you're paying for are lunch and dinner. And generally, I would say lunch is about $10 and dinner is about $20 a day. Café con leche, these types of things. If you add wine or things like that, it might bump up more than $30 a day. But honestly, if you could probably get it below $30 a day as well. It just really depends on how much you eat and how many granola bars you pack, and if you have the self-control to eat your granola bar instead of the chocolate croissant. So the church fee. The church fee is $1,300, and this includes payment to our outfitter, and the outfitter is in charge of doing our lodging, and the lodging includes breakfast and then transporting our bags from spot to spot. They also provide like on-trail support if we need it, and they just generally give us a guide paper-wise that helps us make sure we get to our destinations. But don't worry, it's not the kind of place you'd get lost. The other thing that it covers are those train fees to and from Madrid, and then that final hotel fee in Madrid. So that is the church fee. So total, it really depends on that flight. That's the contingency. So $2,500 to $2,800. If you want to get super fancy and eat out fancy every day, it probably much higher than that. Also depends on how many presents and prizes you want to buy along the way. But that's the general cost. All right, training. I think this is close to our last slide. Training, I would say for the month before the Camino, it does behoove you to become an almost daily walker. I'm talking like maybe 5 walks a week, 4 if you're in a busy streak, but those walks need to be about 2 to 4 miles. And then I would suggest going maybe 2 to 3 long walks over the months before. Not necessarily so that your body is, in shape, but more so kind of your trigger points on your body, like where you're most likely to get blisters, or if that knee is bothering you, so you should head over to CVS before you leave for like a compression sock for your knee. Those types of things. Go on a couple long walks so you get to know your body. Most people's walking pace is between 20 and 25-minute miles. And so when you think about having a daily walk of 2 miles, that's probably a 40 to 50-minute walk on those days. You should wear the shoes you're going to use on the Camino for those walks, so that the Camino is not the first time your feet go in those shoes. And then you can try out your socks too. All right. When you're on the trail, you are a peregrino, and that is a pilgrim. You are a pilgrim. So as I've led these trips, there are a lot of reasons that people enjoy this, that people need this, that people kind of come to this hungry. And I'm just going to go over some of the more popular ones that we've had. One of them is honestly just to unplug. It is popular for people to delete their news apps, things like that, just unplugging from the day-to-day demands of life. Some people love that it's a physical challenge. They're not lay on the beach type of people for their vacations, and so they love that every day they are asked to walk and to use their bodies and to use that energy in them. The other thing that it's hard to articulate, but it's a steady rhythm, right? Well, I mean, we know now through research that walking is an important thing for your brain, but it almost sometimes on the Camino feels like a brain massage, that steady pace of just walking over and over, taking every step. There also is this sense of returning to yourself and returning to God. One of the women on the trip said that was the first time she'd had conversations with herself in a long time. And she was having conversations about grief, about the loss of a loved one. She was having conversations with herself about her work and her vocation and purpose. She was praying with God about these things and opening up to God's creativity and to the nature that God provided to kind of have these conversations in. And you know what? Some people are super goal-oriented and they really want that Compostela. They want that certificate of completion. And that is also a reason. And maybe every single reason on this list is one that vibes with you. And that's great too. But before I wrap up this informational session, I do want to say a little mantra, because this is not a tourist type of trip. And so we have this mantra on the Camino where tourists expect and pilgrims accept. When you go to, you're going to go to an all-inclusive, or you're going to go on a cruise, or you're going to go stay in a 5-star hotel, you have certain expectations for how things are going to go, what the food's going to taste like, what is going to be an option for you to choose. Tourists expect. Pilgrims accept. There are a lot of things that you can't control on the pilgrimage. And this is actually part of the beauty of it, right? You cannot control the weather. Sometimes we can't control the style of lodging we're in, or the food we eat, or whether our right knee hurts on Monday and our left knee hurts on Tuesday. We can't always control how fast we're walking, or if we want to walk with people or not walk with people. And so pilgrims accept. This is part of being a pilgrim. You let go of your expectations and you respond to the present moment. And maybe that's rain. You just don't know. So tourists expect, pilgrims accept. Friends, if you are interested in joining us on our next pilgrimage on the Camino, please let me know. Let me know, and I will loop you in, keep you looped in to our email thread where we're going to be doing, we're going to be choosing dates and keeping people up to date on registration and how to pay and all those things. So let me know if you want to keep in that conversation with us so that you can have, honestly, just a truly remarkable week where it's just you and the road and other pilgrims who have committed to this journey alongside you. All right.